Welcome to the show, Coach. I'm really excited to talk to you. You're the newly appointed Test coach, of course, on the national side. But what has been the last couple of days been like for you?
If I were brutally honest, Khalid, firstly, thanks for having me. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, just taking care of media stuff. Everybody obviously wanting a piece of you, and also just like the whole thing just settling in, and getting a grasp. Obviously reached out to a couple of players, been in the conversations with Rob Walter, because I pretty much get stuck in next week with the one-day side. So it's been busy but good. Busy is never a bad thing, eh?
Yeah, I was going to ask you the question about the overseeing the ODI side against England and how much you spoke to Rob about like the team itself and how you guys want to play.
Yeah, look, our philosophies are pretty similar in how we want to play the game. So it's quite an easy fit. Robert's obviously one also of guys being in the right mindset, quite an aggressive one, and playing the best game of cricket, whatever the conditions present, or whatever conditions are presented. So that's pretty much how we're going to approach next week as well. Obviously, I'm on the ground level. He's a million miles away, so we'll be in regular contact with regards to what the conditions are, the makeup of the final 11, and then obviously just managing players, because they're involved in the SA20 league at the moment, which has been an unqualified success. It's been brilliant just seeing the hype, and people love cricket. That's the good thing, when people still love cricket. So, managing that is going to be tricky, but look, it is what it is, and we're going to make the best of it.
So, we being a fan channel like we are, the fans spoke a lot about wanting to see a young, fresh new squad. But you kept the familiar, like 15, I would say, with Magala and Jansen basically being like the only two additions to the squad. Can you explain to the fans why Rob and yourself and the selectors decided on the squad that you did?
I'm going to burst the bubble right here. I had absolutely nothing to do with the squad. It's just Rob and the selectors, and so it should be, So whilst I'm the interim coach, it doesn't mean I'm just like babysitting this whole thing. But from a purely selection point of view, it was Rob and the selectors, the squad is what it is. I didn't speak to Rob about what his plans are going forward, and those sort of things, but I'm sure that will be unveiled as we go along.
So before you took this job, you knew that we have been quite dark times. South Africa's been facing in cricket recently.
Oh, you're not talking about the load shedding? because that's proper.
Adds to it.
That's proper dark times. Eh? So
Yeah, but the side were convincingly beaten, obviously, by a few teams over the last 4 to 5 years. What's your aim of turning things around?
Look, I think it's pretty obvious. The batting is a problem, and it hasn't only been Australia. It obviously started in England already, and there's a host of reasons for it, and obviously the guys are very low on confidence. So the wickets they played on in England and Australia have been quite spicy. Even in recent years, the test matches we played here in South Africa have been quite spicy. So I feel for the batters, it hasn't been easy. I'd like to, when I do sit down, is to identify. It's obviously a great time to press this reset button now. Now's the time, because my question is quite simple. If not now, then when? We've only got a few test matches this year, so the conversations are going to be around who these players are that we want to take forward, to have engage with Dean Elgar, who's our test captain, what Dean's thoughts are, and then obviously share with the selectors. Enoch has got a pretty good idea of how and where I want to take the test side, and then obviously for me to share with the selectors. But ultimately the batting is a concern, and we've just got to make sure that we get the right players on the park for them to the guys that have been performing, at the level that they're supposed to be performing. So if you're a test player, the question is, have you been performing at test match level? Okay. Right? And if the answer is no, well, then we need to have a conversation. If you've only level you've played at is the domestic level and you've really been performing there, well, is it an opportunity for you to then take the step up? And that's another conversation. So yeah, hopefully in a few weeks, when we do sit down and select our first test squad, I think when the squad gets announced, hopefully that will give a good idea of where I want to take the team.
Yeah, because Dean spoke a lot about experience, domestic experience, and it made me think about certain players that were picked, etc. I'm not going to name names on the show, but talking specifically about our batting, this is something that I came up with after looking at stats, because I feel that fans look at stats, averages and things, and they just spit out nonsense sometimes. So I looked at something different. I looked at conversion rate. So I want to ask you if that's important, and if you had a choice between picking a younger cricketer that maybe was doing well domestically for maybe 2-3 years, and who's converting his 50s into 100s on a regular basis, compared to a player who has maybe 70 or 100 domestic games, but has more half centuries than obviously centuries, who would you go with?
Yeah, it's a mouthful. At the end of the day, the currency remains runs, right? You can come with a fancy philosophy, you can come with a fancy brand of how you want to play. Yes, the brand and the culture is important, and then you've got to match that up with the characters. But at the end of the day, cricket is a stats-based game. You've got to put the numbers out there, and if the numbers match up to what the requirements are, then these players need to be considered seriously. Similarly, if the numbers aren't matching up, i.e. guys playing in the test side, and it has, and look, I've been around long enough to know that batters go through tough periods. Batters have bad spells. They go through a tough series. It might be 2 series, but therein comes the smartness, you know, in terms of, you talk of conversion rates. You go back to domestic games. Who are the guys that have got the ability to convert regularly, and whose record speaks to that? So all of that, all of what you mentioned is hell of important, and yeah, those are things that I'll definitely be looking at seriously.
So maybe a question you don't like?
I don't like, yeah. I can tell you now already I don't like it.
What is your philosophy as the coach, would you say?
My philosophy is a simple one, right? Whatever the conditions are, you play accordingly. You've got to play it with an aggressive mindset. You must look for opportunity. And when I say opportunity, as a batter, the opportunity to score runs. Yeah. As a bowler, the opportunity to take wickets. Yeah. Simple. It's not like this rocket science where I've sat down and, hey, I want to reinvent the wheel. It's not that. Also, if you see globally, and this is not me saying, well, hold on, let's jump on the English bandwagon. It's not that. The trends are there, and you'd be a fool to ignore what the trends that is happening globally. Yeah. Guys are transitioning from T20 cricket into Test cricket now, rather than in years gone by. The old adage was, right, he must get to know his game in the first class game, and then he can become a good white ball player. Things have changed with so many leagues around, and again, we've got to understand the leagues are part and parcel of our cricket. Right? It's not going to go away. We must start seeing it as an ally rather than an enemy. All the leagues that have popped up around the world. And I can say comfortably and quite categorically that our top players still want to play Test cricket. Right? But we've got to obviously allow them time to go and make really good money in all these leagues as well. So yeah, I run a very simple ship. It's nothing major. It's not rocket science.
I like that. We need some basics back in our lives, I feel. You have coached at every level, obviously, National Academy, SA Under-19, domestic, winning lots of trophies as well. SA Emerging, SA and international with Uganda. Now you're coaching SA. What have you learned from all of these different coaching roles? Are there a lot of similarities between the levels or that you've coached as well?
I think it stands me in good stead for what lie ahead. But in the same breath, I don't know if anything prepares you for it, you know, because everything is heightened. You're constantly in the spotlight. Your family's in the spotlight. And it can be quite tough. And I've obviously had to sit the young man down and the family and say, look, everything you read out in social medias, and please just don't get too caught up in it. You know, it is what it is. Not only the good, but the bad as well. So I think where I'm advantaged in having coached all these levels in South Africa is that I know every one of these players, and I know them rather well. Not only their ability with bat or ball, but the characters. And that for me is going to be a massive thing when I sit down with the selectors. This is the type of cricket I want to play. Let's match up the characters first, right, who have the necessary skill set.
So I did a little bit of digging and asked some players about you, and what you are like.
I hope you ask the guys that think I'm a rubbish coach as well. Eh?
Yeah, I asked everybody. So they said that you have quite a reputation to be a tough coach, straightforward with them, right? Is it true for every player, or do you assess the player and then adjust according to their personality or what makes them tick? Because I've seen certain coaches come hard at players that maybe need an arm around them, you know?
Yeah, it's like, and again, maybe my teaching background stands me in good stead here, although it's a very, very long time ago. Also, having fathered two young daughters who are quite the social butterflies, you know, and a young man growing up now, you've got to be alert to all the different type of personalities, and you've almost got to be in touch with the modern world as well, you know. So, although I'm very much an old school type of guy, I've got a really good sense of what the modern day, not kids, but the modern day young people are about. So to answer your question, yes, it's a different stroke for every different folk, you know. Some guys, and yes, I base my philosophy on honesty. And sometimes players might feel that honesty is too honest for them. They all cry out for honesty, you know, like, coach, you've got to be honest with us. And when you bring the honesty, sometimes they're like, oh shit, that's too honest for me. But no, look, I'm certainly not this oak that stands there and just like kick the bucket like your famous football manager does or did. I wish I could be half as good as him though. But it's a simple thing. Different guys you treat differently, but you want them to be their best person so that will enable them to be their best cricketer as well. So for a player to be himself, and me just being the sounding board for him, you know. All these players are really good cricketers, right? And obviously I've got to provide the support from my side and my support staff. But ultimately, we've got to enable these guys. We've got to allow them to be who they are, together with our support.
With regards to support staff, is it going to be over both? Or you guys are going to use, like, for example, a batting coach for ODI T20 as well as Test cricket, or are you going to get individual coaches for yourself and Rob picks his own team?
Well, the plan is for us to have our individual staffs. Funny, I literally just got off the phone with Rob before I sat down here now, talking around some of these things as well. But look, I mean, these are conversations that are going to be had. I've presented Enoch with a wish list, and there are obviously one or two people I'm still engaging with, because it's not as straightforward as, listen, I want you to come on board, and the guy, the person then throws up everything he's currently busy with and then just barges in. But again, hopefully in a couple of weeks we'd have nailed all of that down, and I can then present to the test support staff. And if Rob wants to use any of the guys, I mean, these are conversations. If we feel they're guys that can work across both formats, then we'll do that. Rob and I have got a fantastic relationship, right? And he's already given me ideas of the test sites.
Yeah, so you know the Proteas over the last 6 years or so have had like 3-4 different types of coaches, and I feel that it's quite disruptive, the team culture, the players' mental strength as well, because it can be quite disruptive. So I asked Enoch in the presser whether he will introduce maybe a performance coach or a sports psychologist into the setup. Do you believe in that and that is needed? Because he said the reason he picked you and Rob is because of your mental strength, both of you.
Yes, and yes, I need I think the mental conditioning coach. I mean, whether it's a psychologist or a life coach or however that is framed, but we need a mental conditioning coach, and I believe firmly in it, not only for the players but for the coaches as well. You know, I think, and I remember years gone by when I started out at the Lions, up in Joburg, I had Ken Jennings, Dr. Ken Jennings, as the team psychologist. But Ken and I used to spend a lot of time together, right? It's how we're going to use the mental conditioning person. For me, it's not about flitting in and out and impressing it upon players. Really, the guys that I want on board, everybody needs to understand the roles and how we can help each other out. But again, I think it's critical that we have someone like that on board.
I'm sure you got this question 1,000 times, but you know we have a troubled past, of course, you've played through it, etc. And you know the importance of transformation as a result of our past. What would your approach be with regards to building the team culture within the team and with regards to transformation, etc. going forward?
The culture is critical for me, right? And that would be the first thing that I'd be looking to get right. And culture is not mutually or not dependent on the transformation of a side. It is embracing of all of the cultures, and I do things quite differently, and it's very difficult for me to sit here and say I'm going to do it like this and I'm going to do it like that. But because of my being comfortable about speaking openly and honestly about anything, and if I don't know enough about it, I'll obviously engage people that do. But for me, it's just an open, honest policy. And we need to speak around certain things. I don't know how in the modern day or in times as we stand now, we can still talk around what is your thoughts on transformation, you know. When you sign up or when you choose to get involved in cricket in South Africa, you need to be understanding of what's gone before. You need to have a really good grasp of where things are at currently. And you've also got to understand that it's not an achievement if you bring on or if you pro-transformation. It's not an achievement. It is your responsibility, right? Again, having said that, what does transformation look like to different people? When people use the word transformation, they think it's a lowering of standards, right? They think you can pick any black African or colored or Indian player. Ultimately, so question, is Kagiso Rabada a black fast bowler?
He's a great fast bowler.
He's a great fast bowler that happens to be black.
Exactly.
Right? Temba Bavuma, is he a black batter? He's a batter that happens to be black. So for me, that's the narrative that needs to change, you know. People are saying, oh yeah, you've got to find black batters. You must find the batsman first. The oak must be good enough, right? International cricket is not a finishing school. Right? You can't come here and say, right, we're still going to develop this oak now. No. That needs to happen at domestic level. When it comes to international cricket, he must be the finished article. So, yeah, a lot of work needs to be done at first class level as well, you know. And again, the transformation thing, my sides will reflect South Africa, and people will always say, there'll always be, yeah, this and that, and it's another transformation selection or a quota selection. Yeah. We'll come over all of those things. We will select what we believe are the best players representative of our country. The numbers need to stack up. The numbers need to stack up in order for you to be selected for South Africa.
Okay, that's brilliant. So I'm going to move a little bit on away from cricket a little bit. It's kind of related, but it's not exactly. So when I spoke to people about your playing days, because I never got to see you play, etc., I just hear stories at bits, etc. But they always say that you were ahead of your time. Do you feel that you carried that over into your coaching?
Yes, and again, depending on which side of the fence you sit, my stats. I didn't play a lot of first class cricket. I played cricket in the bad old days, you know. I played on the white side, and then what happened, you know, in the country, and then I moved over to the non-racial side of SACBOC and of SACOS and the Western Province Cricket Board, and at Unity, right? So I didn't play many first class games. I'm not even interested in the excuses for whatever. I'm not bitter about anything. it did make me realize that there was more to just cricket, okay? And it put me again in a really good position. I've played during the bad past of apartheid, I played in the white side, on the white side, so I know a lot of the players and I know the people. I've moved on to the non-racial side, and obviously know that how that panned out, and that unity, I was part of that as well. So again, it gives me a really good understanding of all of it. All right. So my stats wouldn't reflect that. I was a little bit of I was slightly ahead of my times, I'd like to think, in terms of how I wanted to play.
Yeah.
I was playing reverse sweeps those years ago. That was like 20 odd years ago. You know, I played a reverse sweep the one day. And my dad like, what is that? You know, and yeah, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, that's why I should be. But for me, cricket was always. It can't be. We're sitting at one of the top schools here in the country at Sachs. It can't be about playing a structured schoolboy. I wanted to explore and find out how. It had to be fun for me.
Yeah.
It can't be. I sit in school all day. Then in the afternoons I go to madrasa. Then I come on a Saturday and I must still play like this. No. I want to explore what is fun. It's got to be. And as we go along, and I followed cricket. I used to listen to the radio commentary at the time, BBC, and just get a sense, read about the game, and be a proper scholar of the game. You know, so you started to understand. And I was very fortunate in that I had some of the best mentors there. As growing up, coaches when I was playing at schoolboy level, and then also playing in the non-racial side. There might not have been the coaches, but certainly the guys that I played with. I was still a youngster. I rubbed shoulders with the Mansour Abdullahs, the Vincent Barneses, played against Stewie Hendricks. When I was at United in mid-Montrose, Stewie was a hell of a player, right? A hell of a cricketer. Reggie February, Nazim White, Faik Davids, all those guys. And we learnt of each other. You know, we pretty much learnt on the job type of thing because there wasn't a structured coaching. And I learnt there as well. And then obviously, when I played in Holland for a bit, and I was fortunate enough to meet up with the now late Dick Abed, who was a serious all-rounder back in the day before he went to play in the Lancashire leagues, and he was a mentor for me. Moved on, the late Hilton Ackerman became a mentor to me. In my playing days, I was fortunate enough to share a dressing room with the late Bob Woolmer. Yeah. And it was like the conversations was always like slightly different to how it's normally done. And that like really triggered a lot of, hey, listen here, this is what the best, I watch the best players, what do they do? So yeah, it's been a journey like that, and I don't like the term you were ahead of your times because it sounds like bindgat, you know.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to do it slightly differently and on the, shall we say, the more positive side, and use the, not what if it goes wrong. You know, that's like we get paralyzed by that. You know, yeah, but what if that goes wrong? What if it doesn't work? Yeah, but what if it does work out?
Yeah, exactly.
I talk a lot, sorry.
I love it. So, just two more questions. So, we had the chairman of Montrose Cricket Club. I don't know if you saw that on our show when we announced that the two of you guys will be coaches, etc. And he spoke to us and he said, it means a lot to the community that the fact that you have gotten this role. I would like to know, what were your emotions like when you found out that you will be the national test coach, and what does this mean to you and your family?
Okay, the last question first. My family are over the moon. My dad, excuse me. When I told the old man, and he was probably the last person I told, because I knew he'd never be able to contain himself. Right. So I heard earlier in the week when I got the job offer, and it was like, it's funny, we were sitting outside, myself and my wife and my sisters, came through, and no lie, it was the next morning. The night before, I was in conversation. Enoch was busy flying from wherever, and we had a light conversation, so I didn't share that with him. The next morning when I received the offer, that's when my wife was at work. I mean, she holds the household together. She works hard. And I called her up, I sent her a screen grab of what had just come through. I mean, she was over the moon. And then we obviously had to keep things on the lowdown. You couldn't go, and I didn't tell my sisters or my dad until the Saturday evening. The Monday was the announcement, and we were very closely knit family. We spent weekends together, my 3 sisters and I, and my dad. I was sitting at my sister's place, and we were having a little braai or something, and I said, guys, just very quickly, on Monday morning I'm going to be the Proteas test coach. And they just like screamed and went absolutely berserk, and my old man stood there like in shock, you know, and he was like, he was in tears. But yeah, it's been a for us, and obviously I understand that you said about Razeen coming on, and I can understand that the community is like hell of a proud, and I want to make them proud as well, you know. I know where I come from. I think that's important. And I think that's pretty much all you want, you know. You want people to get together and get behind people. I mean, I think we've also for far too long and like broken people down. But I also understand that when you're in this position, you're going to have your naysayers and all the rest. If I go by the messages of support that I've gotten from people across the world, across all the divides, right? Then that like really says to me, okay, you got this, you know. Not that I needed affirmation or confirmation, but it's really nice receiving from ex-test cricketers, similarly from guys you've played with, older folk, you know, that have watched you grow up. So it's a very proud moment for me. I mean, and you're coaching your country, man. You've got an opportunity to be a game changer for your country. You're not going to do it on your own. You're going to need people. But I'd never have taken it on if I didn't think that I've got a chance of getting it right.
Shukri, finally, just a message to the fans.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I know everybody's disillusioned about where cricket's been with the Proteas, but yeah, keep supporting, and hopefully in a few weeks when the test side or test squad gets announced, people will want to get behind the test squad, get behind our test squad, get behind our white ball squad, get behind Sunrisers, Eastern Cape, get behind my Cape Town. Just love cricket, and hopefully we can make everybody very proud.
Shukri, thanks a lot. Good luck with it all.
Always a pleasure. Never a chore. Thanks, Khalid.